Y'all know the name.
What's crack-a-lackin', boys and girls? I am Martinio, and welcome to the new DLC for Project Cars, the New for Old DLC. It's just been released today. It's going for £2.89 in the PlayStation Store now, if you're in the UK, which I think is about $3.50 in terms of euros and $4 in US currency. We've got 5 new DLC cars in the pack and 1 free DLC car. So the first one is this, the BMW 320 touring car, and we're going to take it for a little spin around Zolder. And this one, along with another one in the pack, is my my favourite of the DLC. This one I think purely because it's the only car that actually falls into a racing category. The other ones are all road cars. This one, it's from the 2012 World Touring Car Championship, I believe, and yeah, it's very much, obviously it's being a touring car, it's very much geared for racing, so you're not going to get those silly things like you know, massive understeer and so on in something like this. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to drive. There is scope for improvement, but it is manageable. Even out of the box, I think you can put some pretty nifty lap times in. But if setup's your thing, then there is also scope for improvement with this as well. So yeah, really like this, and I also like the track as well. Now, I'm going to mention this now. The thing with this DLC, and it's been this case with the last DLC as well, we've had absolutely no heads up as to when it's coming. Now, I don't think for 1 second, not for 1 second, do I think that they're sitting there not knowing when they're going to release it. Okay? That they are just they have the DLC ready to go, and they're just, oh well, should we release it today? Yeah, just drop it. Shall we tell them? Nah, we won't bother with that silliness. So yeah, it really is annoying, and to me now it seems a bit amateuristic, in all honesty, because with any other game, you know, the big games developers, you know, or the big games like say The Witcher or Batman Arkham Knight, you knew when the DLC was coming. With GTA, they give you a heads up on a Friday if it's coming out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So you have a heads up. This, I only found out about this DLC from an innocuous Facebook post somebody put up on a gaming group of him. Otherwise I wouldn't have known. I probably would have been sat here twiddling my thumbs, and you probably would be watching another episode of The Last of Us Left Behind. So yeah, they really do have to sort that out, because it is really, really annoying and really amateuristic. The next car, the BMW 2002 Turbo. Now this, oddly enough, falls into the road cars class, which I thought was weird, because I thought this would be, because I believe the 1600 Escort is what this would be stacked up against, and that falls under the touring class, I think. But this one is good. There is definite scope for improvement through setup. I think it needs to be a bit stiffer, so you can work on that a bit stiffer. Maybe adjusting the brake bias as well, because as you can hear there, you do get quite a bit of brake locking, which can be annoying. Also with this car, there is quite a lot of understeer as well. As you can see, there is quite a lot of play in the steering wheel, so you can turn it a good 10-15 degrees before it starts doing anything. But yeah, this it's a fun car to drive. It's a plucky little thing, in all honesty. But yeah, definite scope for improvement. It's not the worst car of this pack, I'll be honest. It's not in any way, shape or form nowhere close to being the worst car in this pack, because this is a lot of fun to drive. It just needs to be, like I said, this is probably just the default setup how it is, but working on setup, if that's your thing, there is definite scope for improvement with this car. Though it is fun to drive on the default setup straight out of the box, and you can get some pretty fun racing in there. So, but as I said, you can see the amount of body roll you probably would need to change or stiffen the suspension, and with the braking, maybe shift the bias a little bit, maybe alter the brake input. But otherwise, this is a fun car to drive, and it should be going up against the 1600, but it isn't. This one, with the swag paint job, the Mustang 2+2 Fastback. Now, of all the DLC cars, this one surprised me the most, because this thing is absolutely fantastic. It really is amazingly civilized. I was expecting something completely wild and unruly, if I'm being honest, with absolutely, you know, gargantuan amounts of understeer, or, you know, just horrible braking. But the braking is really, really good, and it's a very responsive, very planted car. You know, even through some of the tougher or trickier corners, it doesn't. You don't get the feedback through the wheel like it's about to snap on you. And even when it does, it's manageable. You're not. It's not just throwing all of its power out in 1 or 2 or 3 seconds through the back wheels. This is a really fun car to drive. I think, along with the BMW touring car, this is my favourite car of the pack so far. My favourite car of this pack. I know, I've already driven the car, so I know which one's the favourite, but I love driving this car. It is absolutely amazing, and I think the most surprising one, because I was expecting a hell of a lot worse. I was expecting this thing to be an absolute dog of a car to drive, if I'm honest. The stereotype of 60s and 70s American muscle cars being good for pretty much just a straight line, it doesn't apply to this thing at all. It is fantastic. As I said, the braking is exceptionally good for a car as heavy as this, and I wasn't expecting that. And through the corners, it's very easy to find your apexes. I didn't hit it there, of course, but the only downside with this, I'd say, is the automatic gearing. I found myself doing semi-automatic gearing, especially in the downshifts. I didn't do it in the upshifts. The upshifts were fine, but the downshifting, I'm having to kind of do it myself almost. So I don't know whether that's a problem with the way Slightly might have built this, but yeah, if you're doing it with a manual, you're not going to feel it. But an automatic, try manual downshifting, because it will get you through the corners a lot quicker, and it will get you out of them a lot quicker as well, and aid you getting into the corner. This one, you don't have that problem with. Obviously, it's a newer car. This is the 2015 Mustang GT. Looks very nice, very, very quick, very responsive, and again, this one very, very planted as well. I'd say this is actually better than the 302 Boss Mustang, in all honesty. Again, scope for improvement, especially through because there is a medium amount, I'd say, a medium amount of understeer. But other than that, it is a really, really fun car to drive. The braking is fantastic. It doesn't, like the older Mustang, it doesn't really threaten to get loose on you, and when it does, it's very, very easy and very, very manageable as well. As you'll see coming down to this corner, which is a pretty tight corner because you're pretty much going almost back on yourself there. You can see you have to make a slight adjustment, but after that you can plant your foot again. So this one, really nice to drive, very quick to drive as well, because through this section here I was expecting to be a hell of a lot worse, in all honesty, but it was actually better than my expectations. So yeah, I really, really like this car. I'd say it's not as fun to drive as the older Mustang, the fastback, but it is a fun car to drive, and again, with a little bit of improvement, stiffening up and maybe lowering the suspension, I think you're going to get a lot more responsive, a lot more of a responsive car from this, and get better lap times and so on, if hot lapping is your preference. But you're not really going to get high because it falls into the road cars class, and you've got things like the gun pit in there. But yeah, this is a very fun car to drive, very enjoyable. The same can't be said for our next contestant. This, the RUF GT, I think it's called, or no, RUF CTR. Is that CTR? Yes, it is CTR. This one is horrible. Default setup wise, it is horrific. And I'm going to give you a long laundry list of things that are wrong with this car. Now, it probably is built true to what the actual one is like, but you have to brake incredibly early with this. and you have to, as you can see there, I'm having to pump the brakes in almost to get it down, especially through heavy braking zones. I'm having to pump the brakes because if you go pushing that brake pedal down all the way, what's going to happen is that back end is just going to step on you immediately. The other thing is you've got to be in an absolute straight line. You're going to be straight as an arrow when you're braking as well, because that will also have the back end kicking out on you. A lot of other cars you can kind of get away with a slight amount of turn. Some require you to, you know, some braking zones are within a corner almost, so you're going to have to brake and turn at the same time. But this thing, if you like twiddling around with cars and setting up, this will be your wet dream, because this needs a hell of a lot of work to make it, you know, remotely fast. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's enjoyable, it's a challenge, and I do like a challenge, but this thing, there is a lot of things you do. The suspension is a bit too squidgy for my liking. There is quite a lot of understeer. The brake balance needs to be shifted and adjusted as well. Now all of these cars, I basically take them on face value, how they've been released, and then if I decide to race them later, then I will start doing setup work. But this one requires the most amount of setup work in order to make it even close to being a manageable car to drive. You know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm hitting my talent wall, but this one I found very, very challenging, very difficult. Understeery again, and then when it gets to the end of that understeer phase, you get snap oversteer, and also the braking is terrible. Through the longer corners, it's very hard. You got to tiptoe around with this car almost. So yeah, this one, little disappointed, but again, plenty of scope to use setup to make it better. This one I'm kind of confused about, in all honesty, because this, I think we've got 2 racing cars that are RUFs, and we've also got 4 road cars, and this falls into the road cars category. But this thing doesn't offer anything different to the other ones in the road car category, in all honesty. It feels, in terms of the handling, exactly the same, you know. Now, what I've experienced through a lot of the cars, even cars in the same category and of the same make, even, like, you'll get obviously different, you know, the little nuances that you get with each car is ever so slightly different. Some may be very similar, but this is just exactly the same as all the other ones. And it's difficult to brake. In all honesty, a deep braking zone, you'll get almost the same problem as with the older RUF, in the fact that if you have done to brake really, really hard, if you miss your braking zone, this is not going to be forgiving. This is going to, the back end is going to just start stepping out on you, especially somewhere down here where you're going to be turning ever so slightly. You're going to have to pump the brakes and be very, very gentle with it. It is better than the older one, of course. Obviously, we've learned a lot in the 30 odd years between these 2 cars. But again, in terms of what it is, very understeery, kind of unresponsive as well, you know, as a whole, not just through the front end. But yeah, this one, again, not as bad as the last one, but again, there is a lot of scope for this one to be improved. And it's also, again, just really samey compared to the other RUFs, in all honesty. It just feels exactly the same. Doesn't feel like anything different or new, in my opinion. But there we go. So that was my DLC video. Stay tuned tomorrow, because if you're not following me on Twitter, I highly suggest you do, because as soon as Until Dawn arrives, I am going to be putting out a video. I'm going to be putting 2 videos out, actually. The first 2 episodes of the Until Dawn playthrough, so that'll be coming hopefully tomorrow. Madden didn't arrive today, so that's why, and thankfully this has arrived, so I do have something new for you. But yeah, Until Dawn tomorrow, 2 episodes, and there'll probably be another episode on either probably Sunday, I think. So yes, follow me on Twitter, hit subscribe. If you have enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you've also bought the DLC, and you know, tell me what your favourite car is. What is your favourite car? Hopefully we can get 10 likes on this video. That is my aim. I'm going to start asking for an amount of likes. I want 10 today. So, yeah. leave a comment down below. What is your favourite car? Or if you have any questions about the car, so you can leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer it. But in the meantime, again, thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys tomorrow with Until Dawn, which, as it happens, is on the flip side. Peace! It was something called the norovirus, otherwise known as the winter sickness bug. Now, this was fucking horrific. It was horrible. It was just utterly horrible. So much so that the government actually issued a warning to all employers saying that if one of your employees has this bug, do not let them come in, because if they come in, it's highly contagious and your workforce will fall like fucking dominoes.